Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And peace out to the rest of you. Y'all hit the share button. And thanks for those of you that are in. And I know it's late where most of you are. It's early here. It's not even 7:40 a.m. here yet. So shouts out to Paul Wilson. I'm feeling a bit better. I'm waiting on my sinuses to get better. And later on, a local rapper named B Deep, aka Dark Matter, and I will hit up. We'll probably go to an African spot and get some food with some nice pepper in it, really clear my sinuses out. Simeon, good to see you, sir. I'm getting over what might have been the flu. It was bad Tuesday. It's a bit better now. If B Deep hadn't gotten the flu, I probably wouldn't have asked him if we can go and get some of that sire. And what's going on, SGR7? Del4 SEO, welcome, sir. And give my regards to Passport OG for spreading the word about my channel. Y'all can see the topic and I'm going to get into it, but I want to do a sound check first if possible. I'm going to play a sound clip of the modern day hyena, what they sound like when they get to talking about their standards in conjunction with what they ain't gonna do for no man. Let me know if you all can hear that. Hold on. Here goes. All right, that was about 3 seconds. Did anybody hear it? Let me know if you are able to hear about a 3-second sound clip. Okay, all right. Y'all Morgan says, nope. Walaikum salam, Red Lion. So I got one answer that the sound did not come through. And so I might have to look at, it might be like this for a few months because it may be months before I can replace this laptop. But so there are going to be a lot of sounds that I'm not going to be able to play for you all this time then. Nothing I could have done about it. I just have a refurbished laptop from the States. It's generally pretty good, but there are some things I guess it just doesn't know how to do, or some things that just aren't really, it's just not set up for. And I'm not fixing anything. This has led to quite a, this has led to quite the debates at times in between my girlfriend and me, because I tell her oftentimes, I tell most women I've married, and before that, most women that I dated, I'm very good at maintenance and prevention, but I fix almost nothing at all. So laptops like that. So in any case, last night my time was the morning going into the afternoon, you all's time, and the Roger Report went live as he usually does. And I was listening through a lot of it. He was referring to videos that he did not show, but he put the links to the videos in his description, so you could hear these. You could listen to these videos and then come back. And he was referring to their descriptions. One of them was a video in which a man was getting arrested when he called his girlfriend or wife to let her know he's getting arrested. She wanted to act like he was just with some other lady. And the officer had to step in and be like, hold up, you trying to say that I'm some other lady? No, I'm a dude and I'm making an arrest. And how that's what we have to deal with oftentimes. So because of that, I'm going to go ahead and state for the record that someone stated that that woman has her dad in her life. What this means is that not only are we involved as dads, like the CDC has admitted, and that's a confession when the CDC sits up and says that we in Latin American men are the most involved out of fathers. That's for us, that's a boast, but for them, that's a confession. But that also means something else, and that means that the absence of dads is not the reason that we have the dating and mating and marriage crisis that we have in the African American community. And that would probably mean, not even by extension, but coming from the same source in the Anglophone Americas. It's not that there's no dad around, whether dad lives in the same roof or not. That doesn't seem to be the issue. The issue seems to be what dads are allowed to impart and what dads are even taught when they're growing up. What did dad learn about his value as a man? Did anyone tell dad when he was, and let's look at the men that are adults now. Hell, I'll look at the black men that were adults back when I was a teenager and back when I was a kid. No one taught these men that they had a value, and I mean that they had an actual romantic and sexual value to women. Hell, guys of that generation didn't find out that women had sexual needs themselves. Just women having a libido would have been considered black pill information to many of them. Not red, no, straight black pill. Oh my God, they got needs other than finances. Oh my God, they actually like some guys, regardless of what these guys have. That's what it would have been. So to make a long story short, yeah, a lot of this information was not taught to them. Nothing, you know, the girls are precious. The women are precious. You got to earn. And even if they love you, you still have to stay earning it. And your job is to always try and run up against barriers. And her male relative's job is to be that barrier. And her job is really to be that barrier. You know, your job is not to screen, it is not to vet, and it's damn sure to never say no to a woman, especially sexually. You are to have no resistance, no values, and no chastity. That's what they were taught coming up to a certain extent. Oh yeah, they had to work, they had to qualify. And so honestly, a lot of these dudes have come up with that mindset. And they've turned around, and these guys who meant to be there because they wanted to be good men, so they wanted to be good dads and husbands, they've turned around and they've told these, not only told young boys around them that, yeah, you got to work, you got to earn, you got to self-improve, you got to qualify, you got to prove yourself. Not only have they done that to these boys, they turn around and told the daughters, now you look at these men here, they've got to work and they've got to earn and they've got to self-improve and they've got to qualify themselves for you, princess. And they forgot to tell her what she's got to do. Don't forget, Steve Harvey is just a high-profile example of his pattern. But the pattern's been there. Don't forget about I think it's Kendra G. Yeah. Don't forget about Kendra G's father talking about the uselessness of men. Kendra G has a dad. But now let's look at why it is that despite the presence of Black fathers, we have this gynocracy and matriarchy going on that we've got in the Western Anglophone diaspora and Black communities. Well, the reason is that, of course, it was started this way. I mean, that's how we were taken from home and brought into the Americas anyway in mass. That was waiting for us when we got off the boats. But the other thing, too, is that in order to keep that going, by the time dads were allowed to stay put, we were not in charge. And the charge in which we were has decreased over time. But to a certain extent, we've not been in charge since bondage. Now, BGS Itmore, shout out to him, has been able to cover that from a historical perspective, because not only has he been around a long time, but he's read about what happened before he was around. He's talked about what it is that they've had to deal with back in his day, what he had to live through. And that's one of the things that I do want youngsters to take away from elders. Yeah, white supremacy is real. It's not a joke. People that are alive now with full memory of it can remember hiding out in grass away from white supremacists who were going to do them in. Jesse Lee Peterson or Patterson, I don't know. I think it's Patterson. That guy, though I can't stand his politics per se, did bring up something called insurance lynchings. Now, I don't know if he used that word or not, but apparently he gets it. He's one of those who, like many other white folks, he gets it right about gender and gets it wrong about race. What he said was that apparently his own grandmother set his grandfather up so they could lynch him. Them folks could come in and lynch his granddad because his granddad had land and protected it. But he also had guns and he was a sharp shooter. So I forgot exactly what it was that his grandmother was supposed to have done. I don't remember if she unlocked the door or she locked some gun cases, or if she did something to the ammo. It was something so that her husband would not make it, and they congratulated her. And this is how he said it. Now, coming forward into today, no one told Steve Harvey that he meant anything outside of his money. So he has to earn and work, and he knows that Marjorie's gone when the money's gone. Yeah, well, she's done that before. And I don't like to say it this way, but he bought a bitch. And she sold herself. But she still doesn't have the decency to admit that since she sold herself and he bought, that means he owns her. Not by my rules, but by her own rules. When these broads are up here selling themselves and you buy, you own them according to their rules. I'm not even speaking from the standpoint of the faith, because concubinage and human bondage has very narrow rules. It's not really designed to maintain that into perpetuity. Despite what some people like to say, especially the slow steps and the no-teps, who want to diss any religion because it involves faith and patience. Things I'm short on myself, but it's still necessary. I'm speaking from the standpoint of the women themselves that are sitting up there buying. They want to sell themselves to the highest bidder, and then they don't want to be owned by the one that had to buy them. No one taught Steve about his own value. He's not the only one. He turns around and tells these young guys, see, that's what's wrong with these young guys today. You think you got value. Well, when men pay the cost to be the boss, they're the boss. No, man, you ain't never the boss. You were never done proving your. He's merely saying, honestly, what his age group was taught. That women are supposed to be a headache. If it's your girlfriend or your wife. To a certain extent, a lot of whites thought that way, especially conservative whites. To give you an example, I heard a pastor long before I became Muslim. White guy was talking to his church, and I just happened to hear him talking on the radio once while I was driving, and I heard him. He was talking to his congregation about marriage, and he said, "Some of you leave your wives to marry women that are not as much of a headache. If you were not being annoyed and irritated in your marriage, you married outside the will of God." This man set up and said this. That marriage is supposed to annoy you and irritate you. Your wife's supposed to do that. So to a certain extent, the West has this mindset that your wife and significant other or wife by another standard, whatever the case, that the woman in your life cannot be a source of peace. Wa alaikum salam, Jawad. That your job's to suffer. Even he had that mindset long time ago. Now, granted, he's Christian. And to be honest with you, the Christian church is good for imparting the message to people, whether it's a white or black Christian church, especially if it's not one of these new age feel-good churches, then they're pretty good about imparting to their congregation that suffering is the purpose of life. Now, for us Muslims, worship is the purpose of life. Suffering happens off and on. The test comes in waves of ease and hardship. So suffering is no more the purpose of life than ease is. For us, they each have their own test. Which one do you turn to God more out of gratitude, or do you turn to him more out of worry and fret and stress? Most of us tend to do the second one. I myself learned not to do that anymore. Got sick and tired of seeing black folks doing and what that gets us. Then I got sick and tired of seeing a lot of Muslims doing it. But the point I'm getting at is that the church did confuse the purpose, which is worship, with one of its conditions, which is suffering. So white or black churches, they'll turn around and tell their congregation that. Why am I going through this? That's why you're here. Excuse me? No, that's not why I'm here. If somebody's body is racked with pain due to cancer, and they're suffering, then they're suffering because they got cancer. They're not suffering because that's what they're here for. But that's what the church taught. And so a lot of ladies in our community, because our people have had to suffer a lot, have come with this notion that we're supposed to suffer. We're not supposed to cause it for them, but we're supposed to suffer. And dads are reinforcing this and upholding this because they were raised to simp. And they turned around, and that generation, Steve Harvey's age group, which is not my age group, by the way, taught my age group to simp. They were taught it and they bought it. Then they taught it and we bought it. Then we taught it and you young guys caught it. And I think a lot of this day that many of you did. And you said, hold up, hold up. Now, people can say what they want about you younger fellas and your from your early 30s to the teens, I'd say. They can call you a bunch of whining crybabies. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. But about this, you guys have generally been very good. A lot of you have said, no. We're not buying this notion that we have to simp for women that cannot respect us. If we have to pay the cost, we must be the boss. You are good about saying we will not pay the cost and turn around when someone else is the boss. We're not going to get in the mud way down to dig out the crown and hand it to somebody else. If we pay the cost, we're the boss. If she's the boss, she pays the cost. And that's one thing you don't have to worry about women doing. Paying the cost to be the boss, even when they try, that's not what they wind up doing. Believe that. You can simply look at modern day African American women, modern day Black British women, modern day Anglophone Caribbean women, if you want, and watch what's going on. When they pay the cost, striving hard to get their education and their degrees, when they pay that cost, after a while, what is it that they tend to shun when it comes down to the authority? They don't shun the power and the authority, but they will shun the responsibility and accountability. They'll say it's not us. And you'll see it in the communities. Things go bad in a community. Like what happened in Philly when some kids got bored and they got caught on camera roughing up cars and passersby. They ain't got no daddies. No, we know what's going on. They do. They got pops. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they don't. But what happens when they have them? See, in the community as a whole, you can see it amongst teens. When they have dads, when their fathers are there, there's an influence, a negative influence that the kids still have to fight against. We come from a people that have been taught that we need to fit in. Unfortunately, we also come from a people who have been successfully convinced that we're just a bunch of Tarzan chasing savage N-words. That back home, we wear loincloths chasing Tarzan, savage. That in the Americas, we wear tight jeans, running the streets, toting hammers, but we still savages. We view ourselves as savages. And in the teen years, you got one teen that's got a dad talking sense into him. You got another teen that's got a mother trying to talk sense into him. And then you got another teen that ain't got nobody talking sense into him. And he wilds the fout. The worst one of them wins because the seed, which is the idea that we're savages, is already in the minds of all three of them. It's not only in their minds, it's in the minds of the mothers and fathers that are there, whether they try to talk sense into their kids or not. They have that same seed, that same idea in their minds. I know that. And that's why it is that we tend to look at Black folks who don't act like stereotypes as if they're not real. We've seen that before. If you don't fit the stereotype, you're considered inauthentic and a fake. We got a very narrow view of what it means. I never forget when I started working after college, started working, and I worked in Atlanta. I worked at Verizon for a while. And I never forget this dude, Black Britisher. He was half and half, but he looked like an African-American guy because he was in America. And he spoke with a British accent because he grew up in the United Kingdom. And that's normal. And later, when we took one of the training classes to be trained for tech support, I remember this chick from New Jersey. Just messy. Oh my God. I mean, she was one of those that told me, we can't date because you too light-skinned. And I was never trying to date her. I'm not joking. Never tried. We can't date because I'm too light-skinned. She said it with the double ending. She said, I remember my boyfriend from, she mentioned some city, New Jersey. I remember my boyfriend looked like you. He had a bunch of other girlfriends too. And I said, well, I mean, for one, I didn't say anything about dating. Because at the time, I had a girlfriend. So I didn't say anything about it. Another thing too is, if that's the case, that pretty much means that every time you see somebody that looks like him, you're going to say no and they don't even ask you nothing. But the thing was that I had heard that so many times before anyway. I was always hearing that. It's like they had to make it a point to let me know. Well, Red Lion, she might have been, but the funny thing is, man, I would have never known. I had no clue. Because coming from the Gulf Coast, even if they meant to flirt with you that way, if you took them up on it, they would still say no because they got a big kick out of saying no. It's like the Gulf Coast is more conservative. They had to say no. Before they could say yeah to somebody, they had to tell a bunch of dudes no, and everybody had to know about it. So I didn't know the difference. But so she said that, and later on, it turned out that she got with the trainer. Now, the trainer was a very, very funny fella, very calm man, seemed to be accomplished. He was in the gym a lot too. The trainer also was, so he was in shape, tall fella, abundantly melanated. Apparently they got together, hooked up. She conceived. Lady, she was talking about all kinds of ain't fit he is because he wanted a DNA test and all that stuff. And I realized that at that point, I realized that she was very nice of a friend as she was very shallow. And so in any case, I'm saying this to say that when I was doing this work and watching this stuff play out, later on now, I can look back at it and I can say that this in effect is the gynocracy, because she got to play victim and act like she was so stressed when in fact she had to know what was going on anyway. Wa alaikum salam, based Muslim. I had to understand that she wasn't the victim. Now, if the baby was his, he was not the victim. If the baby was not his, he was the victim. Depending. We had yet to see, and he was not acting like a victim at work or anything, but she was acting out the role of the victim. And I had to sit up and explain to a more conservative person from another country how this played out. And that's just what little bit I knew. What's good, Chaos Reign? Oh, goodness. Hold on, y'all. Before I continue, let me give these shouts out because, all right. Onzen, shouts out to you for 2 contributions coming through on the Cash App. Now, 2 contributions of equal amounts. Let me just put it to you like that. That is a big help. I really do appreciate that. That is what I would make in an hour of private teaching plus some. And this is one of the things that makes this worth it. I mean that from the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind. And that's one of the reasons why I was trying to put the sound effects in here, so that I could make the gratitude audible. That was one of the reasons for it all this time. Let me see. I might actually be able to play something, try to get into this, because I tried it before. It didn't completely fail me. Okay, let's see here. If I can find that one. It says, can't play this file. Oh, God. Lord, protect me from fuck technology. As I tell anybody, when it comes to technology, I'm a jerk for a good reason. I'm never just a jerk just because. When I'm a jerk when it comes to technology, it's because it fails. But yeah, shouts out Uns, and I really appreciate that. I mean that. Let me hit these reply buttons. And so she acted the role of the victim at the job. The whole time, the man just kept going in to work, doing his job, contributing. I saw him, spoke to him, thanked him for his training of us initially. And he was like, yeah, man, you're welcome. It's just part of the job. And I was looking forward to him being a trainer for something else later if he possibly could have. But in any case, I saw this was the Gynocracy. 100% the Gynocracy at work. And I also, one of the things that it did to me was that it gave me the impression that genetically speaking, I was not going to be sought out just to breed. It made me drop my guard a little bit, and I still regret doing that. But I didn't see myself as a kind of guy that sisters would use just to breed. You know, in the 80s, I would have been sought out for that, but I was here. This was 1999, 2000, and I thought, well, yeah, that's not going to happen. It's not the way this works anymore. This ain't the 80s. So at the very least, I'm not sought out for that. I'm not one of those, like what Nicole Michelle said about Derek Jackson. She said, if I was going to use a man just for them jaws, it would be someone like Derek Jackson. This dude looked similar to Derek Jackson back then. I mean, at this point, Derek Jackson was probably a small child. I forgot how old he is now, but how old Derek Jackson is now, but he'd have been a small kid during these times. But this man back then looked similar to how Derek Jackson looks now. Except this guy's got a thicker goatee. He did. He's probably got a gray head of gray hair now, but you'll get the idea. So in my mind, I was thinking, okay, well, I'm not going to be in his position because I'm not sought. I'm not the one they're going to seek out just for hookups. I just got to make sure that they're not going around hooking up with somebody else and then coming to me for all the commitment. That's not acceptable. And I didn't fully understand in words that I can articulate why that was not acceptable, but I knew it was not. And I also knew that I was going to be sought out for that if possible. That I did understand intrinsically. I mean, hell, I understood that because sometimes these women were saying it, but just in different words. But when we get back to these fathers, I think she had a dad. I can't remember actually. But these women that had fathers in their lives, whether they lived with them or not, were acting very similarly to how the women who did not have dads were acting. And when I would meet some of these older dudes, they weren't sitting up. I mean, they had stuff to say, but a lot of times it was the ones that had kids and they had daughters that had some of the worst advice to give. Had some of the worst. And when I started looking at it and thinking about it, they were only allowed to be, it hit me a little while ago, and I mentioned this before, but now I'm talking about it as a main idea on this live stream. It hit me like a ton of bricks, y'all. Guess what? That's why they were allowed to stay in their daughters' lives. That's what that was. Men are in families, but part of remaining in their daughters' lives and their sons' lives, because we know sisters will drive men away from their kids for any reason. And this might very well be the mechanism, consciously or unconsciously, in the minds of the moms. This might be the determining factor as to whether or not they try to take the kids away or let the kids stick around dad. How likely is this man to promote simping and gynocracy to the daughter and to the son? That seems to be a very key determining factor. Is that man going to tell the son what mama doesn't want son to know about women's? Like how she chose that man to be the dad in the first place. And that's if he's dad, for real. Is that man likely to tell the daughter that she must compete? He can love her. She can be worth the world to him. But is that man going to understand that his love for his daughter is not going to be a husband's love for his daughter as the wife? And that she must compete to actually be a wife, despite the fact that she was assigned to him by the Creator as his daughter. Is that what's going to be the case? Maybe that's the determining factor. I suspect that it is. I suspect that some women are not aware that this is how they're making the choice, and that others are aware that that's how they're making the choice. As with many things, my suspicion about how conscious these sisters are about it is that that when they're younger, this might be a subconscious thing, and the older they get, the more aware they are of it, but the less they give a cuss word about doing it. I mean, it's like a lot of these women with the dual mating strategy, when they're young, they'll do it. And they may not be aware of it. Now, they get into their 20s, they're probably more aware of it. But they don't feel up by that point. Now they're aware, but they're like, he's superior. He gets it for free. You got to pay. Pookie can get it. You need to buy it, Urkel, because you're not Pookie. You see the shift in attitude as they get older a lot of times. So I suspect that this is going to be the same thing. Maybe in the early 20s, they do it to fit in. Push the dad away so they can say that they can pat themselves on the back in front of their friends. Yeah, I did it by myself. I'm the mama and the daddy. But then as they get older, they're like, yeah, I'm not really going to sit up here and do all that hard work for nothing, because these B words at the hair salon ain't paying my bills. Hell, I paid the hairdresser. I paid her. They didn't pay her for me. So that ain't really where it's at. But I tell you where it is at. I ain't finna have no man tell my daughter that she got to compete and earn a husband. I ain't finna have him tell our son that the real reason he's the father is because he wasn't no simp. I need somebody to simp for me, because I ain't gonna take care of myself. Here's another one. Now, base Muslim, I want y'all to take a look at this one. I'm putting it on the screen. Base Muslim, one of my brothers out the West Side, and I mean that as a double entendre: the West Coast to back home, and the western half of the United States. By the way, base Muslim, I'm meeting a lot of our Fulani brothers and sisters out here, as well as the Hausa. I mean, that are from here, been here over a century. I'm starting to meet more and more of them. There's a locally based rapper named B Deep / Dark Matter. He and his fan, Mr. Hausawi, been getting me up to speed on them. So that's a side note. But I want y'all to pay attention. Look at his name. Obviously, the man is Muslim. And he's telling you about the bad deal you get when you become these stepdads, and when you become what these women are telling you that men need to be stepping it up and looking out for the kids in general and being everybody's daddy without actually having your own kids, and especially you not getting a box. He and I don't believe in fornicating. But see, believing in chastity does not mean that you're okay with women telling you no for the wrong reasons. And the Raj Report yesterday pointed this out accurately. As a non-Muslim, the Raj Report said, I will take these, I will accept not getting the box from a virgin because her body count's already 0. Now, what do you think about this? Now, that man said, if her body count's 1, how the hell do I know? She ain't a virgin. So who the hell is she to tell me no? Now, I'm pretty sure that the Raj Report would accept from, let's say, a widow who did not fornicate before her marriage, that she's not going to fornicate with him, because, and you stop and think about it, it's because it's not personal, and that's what makes them, that's what separates it. See, a lot of guys are thinking that in order to not be a pig, they got to be okay with being told no. A chaste man still does not accept a woman with experience fornicating telling him no. You can tell her no because you're chaste. She's not chaste. She don't get to tell you no. That's not for her to say. And I know Dante came on yesterday. It's a matter of public record. I'm not backbiting him. Dante came on yesterday and said it's her vagina. She get to say yes and say no when she wants to. That's right. That means that makes her accountable. Exactly. But by the same token, if she's not saying no across the board, except on a condition of marriage, then when she does say no, it's personal. It's an insult. And you should not accept that. Because if you accept that, Dante, they're going to look to most men to accept that. So you're supposed to perform and do and prove, and then in exchange for what? And if you marry her, she's going to cheat on you with somebody else. If you marry her, you don't get the box. And someone else does that didn't marry her. What's going on? I'm listening. And that's where the issue comes in. So I want y'all to keep in mind that, yeah, these hyenas, they got dads. But one of the reasons why it is that we got to bounce out the West is because, what's going on, Jay Cleveland? Thank you so much for saying this. You've been putting this up, and I didn't highlight it earlier, but thank you, Jay Cleveland, from the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind. When we got these dads in the Western Black communities, they're not allowed because the mothers, since they have such control, they're going to use that control to stop this message from getting down to the next generation of Black boys and Black girls. That's the next generation of Black men and Black women. That's why it's important for you to not have your own kids with them, because they'll keep that message away from your kids. But it's also important for you in the meantime to sneak behind their backs and do exactly what they're going to call brainwashing and put these seeds in the minds of their daughters and their sons. And don't take care of the daughters and sons either. That ain't your job. It's not your responsibility because they're not yours, remember? But you still go and you tell the sons and daughters the truth if you're able to. No, we already know the men are going to be held accountable. We already know the men got to prove this and prove that and qualify themselves. Now, men, you're going to have standards just like you got to meet standards. Ladies, you're going to have to meet standards just like you have them. That's the gist of what you got to tell them. That's why I keep saying this. You haven't heard me say that we don't have dads. What you've heard me say is that the influence is stopped. That's part of why it is I've said that Black men should not take accountability for colorism in the Black community. We can believe it or not believe it. Who the hell is going to let us pass that down? The sisters are the ones that pass it down. They're allowed to. We're not. Now, if we can't pass down a simple color preference, then how the hell are we going to pass? How can we take accountability for passing down misogyny? We can't. There's nothing for us to take accountability for. We can't sit up and that's the other thing about it. Despite the fact that we got dads in the community amongst our population, we Black men have been trained to accept accountability when it's not ours to accept. We've been told no excuses, ain't no excuses. Now, to a certain extent, I mean, a generation ago, our men and women were both taught that no excuses. So when you had a valid excuse, it was still invalid. That was just how our people were raised. And that was wrong, because that's something that a master teaches a slave. I paid for you. I own you. I will take no excuses from you. I do that with my students at times to scare them. Not so much to scare them, but to give them the notion of how serious it is. I have students that are not supposed to be in the program we're in. By the rules of the program itself, by the customer's own rules, certain students are not supposed to be in there. They are supposed to come in with at least the high school level of, really with at least the middle school level of English. They have to have graduated high school. And they don't get in without that. No high school diploma, they don't get in. That part's true. And they've been holding to that. But they're supposed to have learned at least the middle school level of English. Technically, they're supposed to have learned the high school level of English already because they graduated. They come in, no English, none. Interviews are conducted in English for them to weed them out. Some of them have been failing these interviews 3 times, and they're still put in my class later. And as soon as I speak to them in English, more slowly than I'm speaking to you, they start blinking excessively in confusion. It's not because I'm too fast or because of my Southern American accent. I don't use speed or regional accents in the class. It's because I didn't say it in Arabic, more specifically in Bedouin, Arabonics. They're not supposed to be here. So what I do is I say to those students, no excuses. You don't have to be fluent. I'm here to help with that. You have to improve, but you know so little that I can't help you to even improve because you came with nothing. You came with yes, no, 50-50, maybe, same. Those are the only words you know. Not one sentence makes any sense to you. Every time I say something to them in English and I ask them to repeat it, they go, wish you, that means what? And I say to them, I wish you would learn in middle school what you were supposed to already know today. And I tell them, no excuses. If I give an order to the class, you carry it out. What if I don't understand? You're still in trouble for disobeying because it's not my fault you don't understand the basics that you're supposed to. You knew the requirements when you applied, and they weren't supposed to let you in. So I will blame you, or I will blame the administration, or both. And I'll blame your teachers from before, back in high school and middle school. But I'll never blame myself. It's not my job to figure out a way to make you understand. Now, mind you, I could tell them some of these things in Arabic, but I don't let my students know I can speak it. If I let my students know I could speak Arabic, none of them, not even the good ones, will improve in their English. Because they'll think, well, I just say it in Arabic and then he'll tell me how to say it in English. Then you'll forget. No, start thinking in English, dummy. Lazy Bedouin. I have to be this way. Because Arabs is niggas too. I don't mean genetically. I'm talking about that in terms of corruption and laziness and trying to get over. Man, they got us beat in a lot of ways. But there's something else going on too. In terms of what does that have to do with us? Well, see, we were raised with this no excuses ethos a lot of times. My age group was taught that. My grandparents really were. I mean, my grandparents, you know how grandparents are. They love to brag about how hard they had it and how excuses were never tolerated. Well, I was born with no legs. I had to make my own legs and attach them on. In the meantime, I had to walk to school both ways uphill in the snow, even in the summer. I'm like, yeah, okay. Yeah, life was just hell for you, just so you could brag about how tough you were today. Got it. You know how grandparents do. However, they used to really push this ethos of no excuses. Results, not excuses. They love to do that, love to say that. They kept this to a certain extent when it came to the guys, as the generations have worn on. So they told the women that it is your job to be difficult on these men. Then they've told the men, you are not allowed to make any excuses. If you were single as a man, no excuses. You did something wrong. Don't cry. Don't even ask why. If you ask questions, they say you're whining. Oh, so I won't ask any questions and I just stay by myself. One day somebody comes along and says, man, you ain't never with nobody. Are you 9AY? No. Well, you need to make some excuses as to how you not 9AY. Wait a minute. Y'all don't take excuses. So that's what we're dealing with coming up amongst us as us. And that's part of why I so adamantly tell Black folks in the West, your best bet is to get out. We got dads. I've had a great dad. Still is helpful. In his old age, and I'm an adult, he'll look for ways to try to help me out. I'm up here trying to start a business, hoping it'll make some money so I can help him out, and as well as my kids and my wife, and I'm trying. By the way, officially it got started. It did officially open. And then before it finished its first week, it was affected by a government decision. It came just in time. So I'm thinking of not even continuing the business, because I swear I'm not about to tolerate no bad luck. Because that's a legitimate excuse for it to not succeed, but ain't nobody gonna take it. So they keep telling us this no excuses ethos. And meanwhile, sisters always got excuses. And when the Roger report opens up and says, no, they have too many options to have excuses, then there's a man coming up like Dante in his 50s making excuses for them. He'll hold them accountable for some things, but he never was willing to hold them accountable and exonerate Black men. What about when that's the right thing to do? What about when that's the right answer? We didn't have a say-so, they did. Now, we've been too easy with the ding-a-ling, that's true. But I mean, hell, keep in mind, we're a culture that used to tell guys you 9AY if you ever say no. You don't turn it down. We're a culture that used to do that. Dads don't help. And that's not because fathers are just bad. It's because the only men that are really allowed to stick around and say anything to the younger ones are the ones that promote the gynocentrism and gynocracy and or misandry. That's the only thing that's tolerated. They're allowed to stick around. Kendra G's father, I'm not talking about Kendra D, but Kendra G's father is allowed because of what he said on Kendra G's show. That's okay. Steve Harvey, Simp Harvey. Remember, he was a coon a few years ago. Now he's a simp. Don't forget this. He's allowed to say this stuff. Isaiah on the Isaiah show, who interviewed Austin Holloman after Austin left Brazil, said certain things. Well, 23, you ain't been out long enough. That's when he lost me. So at what age is the right age for a Black man to say, man, shuck this fit? I'm not dealing with double standards, mixed messages. I'm not dealing with this. Accountability with no responsibility. Oppression. I'm not tolerating this. I'm out. I'm going where that's not the case, where that's not the paradigm and the dynamic. And what's the right age for a Black man to say that? His generation, Isaiah's age group, never came with one because it doesn't exist. They want you to do what Isaiah did. Stay your butt there till you're too old to do anything, to leave, till you're stuck in the child support system. Because remember, you don't have to actually be the father to be stuck in it. It depends on the state. Keep that in mind. They want you to get lost in that system and go through the BS through which they've had to go. That's what they want. You get out of it, you escape. What they're saying is, you's done left us here at the plantation. Yeah, nigga, that's where the freedom is. It's that way. You's left us. It's because you weren't going to run away to slavery. And the freedom. And if you couldn't, you couldn't. But if you wouldn't, that's on you, jigaboo. That's what they're like. But that's what's allowed. And that's the condition of fatherhood involved fatherhood and any kind of being a role model amongst us. There thing you have to maintain the gynocracy status quo. And what's the gynocracy status quo? One, you don't hold the women accountable. Only the men. Two, the other status quo. You don't tell black boys to sidestep nigger business, stereotypical stuff. That's the other status quo. All right, let me greet the new ones. Red Falls Black, good evening. So what's happening? And I just got, let me, all right, check your phone, Red Falls Black. Thank you for coming through on the Cash App. I mean that from the bottom of my black heart and for the depths of my black mind. And as I was saying to them earlier, I can't play the sound effect that I wanted to play, but after in a few months, I may be able to replace the laptop with a better one that'll play those sound effects. So there is that, and yeah. So there's that, but I've had to put some into a new business. It's not turning a profit yet. I didn't expect it to. And so that's the reason for me not replacing everything yet. First, I've got to put equipment in place for the new business in a third country. 18th letter, what's going on, R? Shout out to you, sir. Base Muslim, may Allah make your plans not only successful, but easily so. And not only beneficial to you, but beneficial down to your grandkids. And I mean that from the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind. So the other status quo is that the second one, and I'm going to explain more about the second status quo right now that is of the gynocracy that you're not allowed to break as an adult male, or else you're kept away from the kids. And that is that you are not allowed to promote the straight path from the very beginning. And that straight path can be defined religiously, Jawad, Base Muslim, Red Lion, Israel Young Lion, Black Agent, several of my subscribers, Charles Irby, Jaws 2003, a host of others. We religiously describe that as Islam. If others understand the straight path to mean something else or the absence of certain stereotypes, then that's how they understand it. However, the straight path is understood locally by its local black community without having to go through the stereotypical inward route first, taking cemetery and cell block chances. That is exactly what you were not allowed to promote to young black boys. You were not allowed to promote starting on a straight path as a kid, staying on it through your teens and into adulthood, and bypassing the teenage stereotypical phase. You're not allowed to promote that. See, I got a classmate who was the son of a preacher and an attorney. He came up in the country, inland. Where I came up was a little closer to the coastline. He came up about 40 miles inland. And he now is a CEO of a record label company. It's really small, but it's there. But he went through that gangster phase. He didn't have to. Dad, I think mom's was an attorney. Dad was a preacher. He drove to a private black school in a Mercedes, not brand new, but in a Mercedes. It was nice. It had been well taken care of. He went to our school for a year. Then he left. He went into the thug life. And then he wound up going to Angola. No, I'm sorry. He was in Parchment. Sorry about that. And I think Parchment's in worse condition than Angola. Yeah, he wound up going to Parchment. Then Angola the second time, because his last release was from Angola. So I guess he drove across the river and did something. I'm guessing that's what happened. And that was after being out, after finishing his first sentence. So he'd been locked up twice. And then he got out and he worked. He got one of those jobs. He got one of those industrious jobs that it'll pay you well, but he got one of those. And he's doing okay now. He's living in the suburb now. But the point is that he had to go through a whole lot of BS and gigabosity and stereotypicalism, like a bunch of us. Passport OG. I know the proper greeting is not moshi moshi. I forgot how to say like this, the basic hello, not for the phone. I forgot how to say. Anyway, what's good? Good to see you this afternoon, your time, morning, mine. And it's nighttime back states, as you know. So he had to go through that. Now, he can go to the schools and he can give motivational speeches to the youth, because he went through the spear chucker phase, the Tarzan chasing phase, the stereotype, committing crimes, moving weight, that sort of thing. He went through all of that. Since he did that dumb stuff unnecessarily, he's considered qualified to publicly speak because now he's done with that. And I'm glad he is done. He is a good candidate to tell the youth exactly what it is that the Gynocracy does not let anybody tell them, why they shouldn't do it in the first mother cuss word place. Konnichiwa. Konnichiwa. That's the second status quo element that the Gynocracy has. You don't stand up and tell the youth to leave the gigabosity culture and the negative stereotypes behind from the very mother cuss word beginning. That part is not allowed. They will get you for that. Regularly. Who the mother cuss word do you think you are to say something like that? That's when they stop you. Oh no. Now, that's one thing to talk about making it out of that sort of thing, but don't talk about bypassing these negative stereotypical decisions. Don't talk about that unless you're going to tell them to take care of these kids when they do. Now, that's fine. You start telling them to break their minds free, guess what we become then? We're not Europeans, right? We're not Europeans, so we're not going to come with their Western liberalism exactly, at least not in terms of following who we used to be, whatever remnant of that is left. But we're not going to talk about the dysfunctional savages that they've convinced us that we are pathologically and internally. So what does that leave? We're more likely to be like these more conservative cultures in other places of the world, wherein you bypass the criminal path, you bypass the negative stereotypes, but you also don't become a stepdaddy and everybody's daddy without actually getting the box and shooting the club up and pulling your kid out the womb. That's what it is. That's what they're not going to have. Because if you are going to go that route, that responsible route, there are going to be times when you're boring because you got to maintain a routine and some discipline. And those times ain't going to be just a few weekends out the year. No, you're going to have months and years like that, where you have your fun, but your fun is pre-planned because you got to maintain discipline so that you are not caught off guard and thrown completely off by the difficulties that are going to pop up spontaneously, because they will. You will go through months and years where there will be no spontaneous ease. That's all planned and earned. But there will be spontaneous hardship, unplanned, unearned, undeserved, and you still got it. And these women ain't ready for that ride. They'll go through that so that they can be independent of you, but they're not going to go through that with you so that you can provide for them later. That they don't do that. That's not how they were raised. And the other thing is that you're going to, because you will now be more traditional, you will make more sense like what is the norm around the world. You will not have expectations of high wealth with no money. You will not have expectations of a life of immense leisure, you also are not going to understand why you have to be the stepdad and raise the children of the men who did not do any of these things. You will not understand why you must be the feeder for the children of the breeders. And you won't accept that. And that's when they're going to come along and say, now see, that messes up the dual mating strategy we got. Oh no. So they stop that and they nip it in the bud. So when they want to tell you that women are more emotional and men are more logical, no. I put this in my community tab already. Women are actually very logical as long as it is to the inconvenience of the men who deserve the box the most. Then they're emotional as long as that is inconvenience, as long as that's inconvenient to the men who deserve the box the most. Whatever one you as a normal man, a responsible man, will find to be the most inconvenient is going to be what they're going to is going to be what they're going to be. That's going to be them at that time. When you need them to be logical, they become emotional. When you need them to become emotional, or you're at least prepared for it, then they're going to become logical. They're going to do this for two reasons. One, your maximum inconvenience. It's not even about their convenience per se. It's your maximum inconvenience they seek, and the dual mating strategy right here that Jawad just pointed out. Those are the two motives for their switching forth in between logic and emotion. We see them go back and forth between them all the time. That's why I never accept that as their excuse. Oh no, you may be more emotional than us. But damn it, if that's going to be the case, and we can't learn how to manipulate that even for your own advantage because you keep switching it up, then that means that you know how to switch back and forth. You're just not willing to do it if it's beneficial to us. Not even if it's beneficial to you. That means you've been seeking our inconvenience this whole mother cuss word time. And what's the reason for that? Because the one thing they're looking to do in order for us to cooperate with would mean genetic suicide, dual mating strategy. They're looking at men and they're saying that most men don't deserve to reproduce, but they should have to feed. They should have to produce without reproducing. They should be bound to production while barred from reproduction. Now, why would we participate in that? That goes against us. A man that can't have children is not going to accept being held to a deal like that. If you take a man and he knows he can't have kids, he's not going to accept that the society is going to bind him to that arrangement. He may hold himself to standards of production, but he's not going to let the society come along and say, you better not reproduce, but you better produce. So you're facing this war despite the fact that you've got dads in these lives of these hyenas, sometimes even in the homes. What the hell you think that movie ATL was about? I haven't seen that one in over a decade. I can understand that now. I remember enough about that movie to figure that out. Nunu had not only her dad, she had her dad and his success in her life. That's in whose house she lived. But who did she have to be? Who is it that she had? She just had to be hood and street like everybody else. Why they call you Nunu? Because I always wear that new. Well, how do you always wear the new? My daddy can afford it. She left that part out. That's their mindset. I don't let men off the hook when they buy into that same mindset like my classmate had. But what I'm saying is that that mindset is not something that is passed down by us men to the next generation. Except for when they approve of some of us to go and publicly speak to the youth at a school event, or I can't just be on the street and sit up here and necessarily pass that message down, but I could pass that message down more easily than I could pass down the opposite. See, we need approval to pass down that message. When we can't get approval to pass down the opposite message. You do not need to be in stereotypical N-word, and you don't even have to go through that kind of phase as a teenager in order to be a real black person. Now, when you start preaching that, there is no approval for that. The Gynocracy will not approve of that, because when you start preaching that you don't have to go through the stereotype, you don't have to fit a negative stereotype to be an authentic African American, because the goal is not to be a real N-word anyway, that is when you go into sacrilege. That's what that means. And having dads does not mean that you are allowed to preach that. And that's why it is that I'm not going to sit up here and tell you, I want all you men to just be better dads in the hood. Because for one, we don't all live in the hood anyway. And two, the hood's still not controlled by us. When we're there and we're giving and we're producing and we're being men, we're still not allowed the authority of men. And then we're blamed when things go wrong. Still, don't stay black man. DSBM, that's a part of SYSBM. And that's really central to all BMPTs. Now, when I say BMPTs, I think you'll understand. And the BM does not stand for black mind. BMPT means black male passport travelers. That's just the overarching acronym that includes SYSBM, Passport Bros, Passport Gang, IBMOR, meaning IBMOR, Introspective Black Men on Perform. The overarching umbrella acronym is BMPT. And I'm looking forward to the day that there is a BMTP, Black Male Traveler Passport. I mean, if currency can be decentralized and still regulated, and there are nations and governments that can see a use for it, there could be the same thing. If the BMTP, Black Male Traveler Passport, becomes decentralized but still regulated by us, there will be governments that would say, well, we benefited from this group. Here, we're taking that passport. We're accepting it. Just don't fake it. But that's another topic for another day. And you know what? I forgot that was Lauren London. Thanks for reminding me, Base Muslim. I forgot that was Lauren London that acted out that role. Because she looks different now. And you're in a position to know about that. Y'all need to check with Base Muslim on his channel. Shout out to him. Y'all need to go and listen. Now, Base Muslim, that we need to be able to hear you better. We need a raising in the volume. But y'all need to go and check him out. He knows about this. Now, I'm not going to ask him to show the photos here, but I actually saw the photos of Base Muslim with Nipsey Hussle. I saw a photo of Nipsey Hussle that's not public. And all I'm going to say is that I understand that there were people close to Nipsey Hussle that were beginning to tell him why he needed to leave the West. But he didn't make it. And it makes me think, it's got me wondering, and this is not something that Base Muslim ever said. Base Muslim has never made, he's never insinuated any accusations against anybody. He never did. I'm the one insinuating, I'm the one telling you I got a suspicion. I'm not saying I'm not saying I got proof. I'm just telling you I suspect that Lauren London set him up. I don't want anybody going and blaming. Don't even blame me for slander, because I'm telling you I suspect. If she didn't do it, she didn't do it. If there's proof that she had no contact with the shooter, then okay, she's innocent. If there's, I simply am saying I suspect. Base Muslim has not said this about her or anything. Wait. Okay, you know what? Now y'all really got to check with him. Now really got to check with him. Because what I suspect he knows something about that. Thank you for giving me for dropping a dime about this to me, man, and getting me hip to this, Base Muslim. I have to go in and look and see about this. And Jada Mahama. So yeah, you see, when Nipsey was not with the N-word business anymore, and he transitioned out of this as much as he possibly could. Now she's sitting up talking about she feels controlled. And the other thing too is that she also did say in an interview something about how she said in an interview something about how it was corny that, or it was he that one of the two said that she found him corny for listening to motivational CDs in his car while he was driving. The F. So what that means is that, and this is a woman with not only a father, but the father ain't black. She came up, she was actually playing her life in ATL because she grew up in I think it was Malibu where she grew up. And if I got that wrong, Base Muslim will correct me in the chat too. And I want to thank him for coming in and helping me keep things straight. But you see, now do you all see, even better than I could have possibly planned this, the limits on the positivity of the influence black or any father is allowed to have over the comroonity. You all see that? Lauren London ain't come up in the comroonity. She ain't come up in the hood. She didn't come up hood. But in a magazine that's no longer published, King Magazine, she said, because the quotes are still available on any search engine, that first, Kane was her first crush because he shot them people in the stove. But then after, no. Kane was the first crush in the beginning of that movie, but when O-Dog shot them people in the stove, she said, "Ooh, that's what I need." And she's been a high Bristol Philiac monkey bitch ever since. No, high Bristol maniac monkey bitch ever since. And I don't like to call anybody that word, but I mean, there are times when you got to do it. She's one of those that sits up and says, if I am nice and fine, then you have to be a stereotypical porch monkey jigaboo to qualify. I will only reward these curves to spear chuckers, stereotypes, Tarzan chasing savages. And when I say stereotypes, who stereotypes? Well, it doesn't matter, because our stereotypes of ourselves are the same as our enemies and kidnappers and colonizers' stereotypes of us. That's the fuck part about it. And see, Lil Wayne, that's right. Look at her baby daddies. How's she a baby mama with a daddy? I thought we needed to prove our way into the pussy. Sorry about that. I muted for a second intentionally because I was going to sneeze, and I did. And if the mic was on, it probably wouldn't work afterwards. See, the problem is that it's not really a problem. I love them. I got these big old Makumbana Yabange nostrils. Like Eddie Griffin said, I got the nostrils. So when I sneeze, it's an issue. And I busted a mic sneezing before. So it wasn't here. It was at work. So I'm not doing that no more. Still getting over the flu. I'm actually sitting up here right now with my fan on, but no AC. Because I'm allowing what little humidity there is in this climate to treat my lungs. If I was back on the Gulf Coast, or if I was in Jeddah or Dammam, the humidity itself would do it for me. But, you know, c'est la vie. I'm in Riyadh where it's kind of dry. So, yeah, if you look at Lil Wayne is not, of course, he's not a thug anymore. He should not be. He doesn't have to be. But now Lil Wayne, he did start off as much as a 12-year-old could have. He started off as on the wrong side of the tracks. He ran with those who were. But the point is that Lil Wayne is still dysfunctional. So that's fine. That's okay. But Nipsey Hussle was not dysfunctional, and that was not okay. And so she had to sit up and talk about how he's corny. And what does that do? What does that do for the rest of us? Shout out to the 18th letter for coming through on the Cash App. From the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind. Thank you. So make a long story short, she's not the only one. She's not by herself. There are plenty like her in every zip code. Every zip code where you got a block of us. And here's the funny thing, even in my neighborhood in which I grew up as a kid, we were starting to see this. We were starting to see sisters not want guys that wasn't with the spear chuckers and the jigabossin and the Tarzan chasing anymore. It was starting to show up. In reality, the phenomena is called class compression or black class compression, where the classes, the behavioral, forget just the socioeconomic classes, but this is something where the behavioral classes are not separated amongst us. Now, this actually was a geographical thing coming up during segregation, because during segregation in the southeastern United States, the teacher had to live on the same street, on the same block as the wino. That happened then. But then when desegregation happened and teachers were allowed to move to where they could afford to live, then all of a sudden a phenomena popped up probably less than a decade later. And then that phenomena was since you left the community and you got these white neighbors, you done changed. And we started to feel guilty about that. Now, I'm a descendant of one parent that grew up during segregation to educated parents, and another that grew up in an unsegregated environment to educated parents. So one of my parents lived in the hood while still having things, and another parent lived amongst white folks while still having things. So I have a parent that comes from a self-made black middle class background, and I've got another parent that came up somewhat bougie and Jack and Jill. And that's made for some interesting conversations in between my parents. And they were a good match. That's actually a pretty successful marriage. But what I want to point out here is that we let this black class compression last when it didn't need to. Now, if we were going to separate the classes, it's important that we separate the classes based on behavior and attitudes towards education, not just based on income. That's important too. But we did not allow them to separate, and that was the issue. See, we look at these other groups in the United States and we say about these groups, well, they got their stuff together. And I keep telling you all, no, other races don't have their stuff together. The Indian community that you see in the United States and in Canada is handpicked, cherry-picked. That's what you see. If you want to see the dysfunctional, trifling Indian, it's real simple. You don't even have to go to India to find them. You can. That's where you're going to see them. You can go here. And if you really want to see them dysfunctional, you can take your butt to Malaysia. They're the N-words in Malaysia. They got ghetto neighborhoods, getting shot by cops because they don't listen. Oh, y'all didn't know about that. Now, if you're black and you walk through one of their neighborhoods, they may take you out. I heard about that happening to an African man that moved to Malaysia, didn't know where everything was, walked through the neighborhood and they did him in. I heard about that. But yeah, they dysfunctional. I learned that my first day. The first taxi I took, he posed, they're so corrupt, he posed like the Grab driver. Posed like that. He played it slick too. He pulled up and he said, "Hey, did you just autograph?" And I said, "How did you know?" Because he wasn't the car, and I'm sure the name wasn't gonna match. And he said, well, because your picture showed up, but they never asked for your name. And that was true. That part was true. Dude played it slick. Now, I know what not to do next, but yeah, one of the first things I learned when I got to Malaysia, they're the N-words, they're the scammers. And fortunately, he didn't take me somewhere to get robbed. But then again, one of the reasons he didn't do it was because he picked up on the fact that I was armed. I don't mean with a gun. But in the course of the conversation of him driving me to where I was going, one of the things he said to me was, he said, "What brings you to Malaysia?" And I said, "I came here for the safety." And he said, "The safety?" I said, "Yeah, man. I said, "Yeah. KL might be dangerous to some people, but to me, KL's not dangerous. To me, KL is a safe zone." Now, that could have sounded naive, but when I said to me, even if it's dangerous to someone else, he got the idea, oh, this is one of them guys. One of them cats. I said, "Yeah, this is a safe zone for me. I'm safe from two things: safe from cold weather and, general safe." So he had this impression that I was a highly trained government operative. And I didn't even mean to give him that impression. He still scammed me. But if you want to see, what I'm saying is that if you want to see that, you just go somewhere else. They're not handpicked necessarily. We think this, but the thing is that back in their countries, you have less class compression. They're class segregated in India. They're class segregated in Pakistan. They're class segregated in Afghanistan. There's actually less class segregation here in the Gulf. Y'all may not have known about that, but there's actually less of it here. Here, I'll see a family and they're in the middle. One person makes it big somewhere, doesn't tell anybody. He'll trust me to know more about his wealth than he'll trust his relatives. Another one, he's strung out, staying in the hood, on drugs. They be calling my phone over here, just like they call you, Jawad. Many be calling my number here. They read my name out to me. They'll read out to me part of my read out part of my ID number and said to me, "Look, you about to get a code on the phone. Can we get that to make sure that we're talking to the right person?" I was like, "Come on, bro. You called the number. The code goes to the same phone number. Of course you got the right person. What the F, man? What you need this code for?" The whole time they're trying to log into one of them government services portal in your account. And when you get the validation code, then and you give it to them, they go in, wipe you out. That's what they're trying to do. It ain't no Nigerians calling with that. And a matter of fact, last time it was an Arab dude. I thought. I said, "Hey, man, let me hold up a second. I'm asking you questions and you're not answering me. You keep trying to interrupt me and overtalk me." I did the Kevin Samuels. I said, "We're not going to overtalk me, man. I listen to you, but I was in front of my students. I said, but when I ask you a question, you shut the fuck up so I can finish. And then you answer me or you say, I don't know. Now, if you don't understand me, hold on. I got a translator here." And I looked at one of my most fluent students. I gave him a head nod and held my hands up. He was like, yeah, I got it. So I said, okay, I got a translator. Hold on. Student said to him, "Listen, I'm going to translate for him. You can tell me in Arabic." And the guy said, "Let's use English. Let's use English." I said, "Motherfucker, I used English and you didn't listen." They were trying. Not one Nigerian. And mind you, I'll go in on some of them Nigerians if they come from a particular background that thinks it's okay to do this to other people, even other Nigerians who are victims of them, I'll go in on them. I cut them no breaks. Don't believe me? You can ask one of Edward Allen Anderson's friends. I cut them no breaks because other Nigerians are sick of them, sick of suffering for them when they go places. I give them ninjas the business. I'll do that because all this ADOS and non-ADOS fighting going on, well, they laid the seeds to make that possible, even though Yvette Cornell really tried to kickstart that up so that she could protect her booty bandit lifestyle, a carpet muncher lifestyle. Even though she took advantage of that, for the seeds of that, the possibility of that was really started by one particular group, not Nigerians, but a group from within Nigeria. That's what they be, that's what happens. But not one Nigerian, let alone one from even this particular group, is calling me up doing that stuff. No, they from India. That's who's doing it. Just dysfunctional. Be lying on job applications to get jobs over here. I am speak English. I am speak English. That's what they tell when they're working, when they're coming for a job here. They tell the employer that they speak English. Then this is where it gets real funny, right? They'll show up here. I walk in, I'm an English speaker. So if I speak to them in Arabic, the only Arabic they can answer me in is a broken Arabic. I can't speak broken Arabic, so I can't communicate with them. But India is officially an English-speaking country, officially. So then I'll say, all right, well, look, you mind if I use English? English, no problem. All right, fine. Listen, so what do you have that does not have beans or peas? Beans and peas. Okay, sir. Okay. No. What do you have that does not have that? You want beans and peas? Man, I just said I don't want that. I'll take anything else. Okay, sir, beans and peas. See, bro, I just told you, you know what? Do you speak English? I am speaking. Really? I am speaking. Where's your boss at? Where the manager at? You know how many Indians I might have gotten fired for lying like that? It's not because they don't speak it. It's because they lied. Because they lied about that stuff. That's how they get by. That's what's going on. That's them. They're getting busted running scams more than any. If you took all the Africans, forget one nationality, you took all the Africans, all of them together, they wouldn't count, they would not equal the number of Indians we got trying to run these scams. You know how I busted them running, how I get some of them to quit? When they call me up trying to get my info, I'm like, hey, hold up, man, listen. I've been waiting on your phone call. Excuse me? I've been waiting on your phone call. Really? Yeah, man, I've been waiting on y'all. What took y'all so long? I'm working with the FBI and the Mabahith, because the Mabahith is the Saudi FBI. So I'll tell them I'm working on the joint task force, and we're trying to catch people that are lying about stuff like this. So I need you to stay on the line with me for about 8 more seconds, and then we'll come and get you, and you can help us out. Now, we'll pay you, or we'll put you in prison. You get to choose, but we're coming to get you. Are you wearing a green shirt, or are you wearing a yellow one? I'll be doing that to him. And then I was, oh, wait a minute. You're not the bald guy, but you're sitting in the room with him, aren't you? I'll be scanning, and then they hang up. And then I turn the numbers over to the real Mabahith. Now, I do this, mind you, this is me, Black American. I'm on TV robbing people and doing all other kind of bad stuff in these 80s movies. I'm on The Color Purple smacking black women around, violating them and all this other stuff. And I come over here and I'm up here scaring criminals from committing crimes and busting them, or helping the cops to bust them. I'm a snitch. You call me trying to run a scam, I'm going to scare you. Then I'm going to turn that phone number over to the Mabahith locally, because I'm a snitch. I'm cooperating with the police, and I ain't even asking them for no money. I'm like, here you go. This is free. Thank you for the work you do. Now catch this mother cuss word. I'm going up into people's businesses, and when I find out that one of them's in there lying about their language skills, I knock their hustle. I get them removed. Not because they don't speak English, but because they lied about it. And I caught them. I'm doing this. And we're sitting up here thinking that all these other ethnic groups got their stuff together. No, they don't. What they do have is they've got class division instead of class compression that actually makes them not nearly as united as we are. And then when some of them who have enough class and enough resources get a scholarship or something, when they're right below a particular level of class and income, right below it, and they get a scholarship, or they're right above it and they got enough money to go to school in the West, they go and they get the visa interviews at a U.S. consulate or embassy or a Canadian one. That's how they get it. They show the paperwork and they go through a lot to get the paperwork. And a lot of times they scam that too. They're going to ask uncle and auntie and everybody else, listen, can y'all get together and put this amount in an account? Put the account in my name. I just need a bank statement stating that I've got this much in an account so I can show to them that I'll have a way to live while I'm studying. That's all. That I won't need to work while I'm studying in the U.S. Can y'all do that? And they go and they take that to their appointment at the U.S. embassy or consulate. And if they get the visa, they got a follow-up. And the follow-up is where they're told you stay away from them darkies. And in India and Pakistan, that's not even necessary. I mean, they're told that, but that's not even necessary. Because they got such a negative view of black folks anyway that they don't have to be told that. Y'all may not have known about this, but that's what it's like. And here we are thinking, oh, they just got their stuff together. Man, look at their communities. Communities, when have you seen a bunch of Indians or Pakistanis living in the same zip code in the United States? They live with white folks. Their businesses are where we live. Their residences are not. They don't live with each other either. They live with white folks. Aside from Hammertrack and some other city in Michigan, you don't have Arab communities geographically speaking. You might have maybe a few blocks in New York where they live. Maybe they don't really live in the same places with each other like that. We do. You think that they're united? They're divided. We're the ones that actually have more of a unity because we got this class compression, but they're able to utilize class compression to hold us back. And guess who's utilizing that class compression the most? It ain't us shines. I mean, it ain't us men. We're not the ones walking around saying, listen now, they're your cousins. That's my sister's children's. And if they want to smoke weed and rob banks and make fun of you for not doing that stuff, then you need to go ahead and do that. We're not saying that to them. Now, moms might pretend like that's what we're doing, but in reality, moms might pull them off to the side and be like, nah, listen here. They're your cousins. So you can smoke a little blunt. I'll keep your daddy off you. You smoke a little blunt. You smoke just one blunt so they shut up because they're your cousins and you need to keep it real. And then when you've done enough dirt and dumb stuff, then you can start straightening it up so that you don't get no more trouble and you can take care of your mammy. That's what's going on here. It's been like that for a while. And I'm sorry for preaching this long sermon on Friday night, Saturday morning. I guess now it's Friday morning for y'all. I'm sorry. Yeah, Saturday morning for you all, like early. But I'm sorry for preaching this much. But the point I'm making is that simply put, the influence of the dads is not, it's not allowed. Yeah, dads are there. But the ones that we're seeing are only allowed because of the effect that they have and that they don't have. Steve Harvey is allowed. Isaiah with the Isaiah show in Houston is allowed. Austin Holloman, if he has kids, is not going to be allowed. They'll screw Austin. But when Austin don't preach that matriarchy stuff, they're going to eventually say, you know what? I need to start plotting because when that baby starts talking, that baby don't need to be around daddy. That's what starts happening. I need me a good gynocentric stepdad. Brittany Renner probably picked up on something very specific. I think Brittany Renner picked up on the fact that, Grant, I'm sure she wanted to take PJ's money and get away from having to listen to him. I'm pretty sure that's what the case was. But even Brittany Renner talking about it's stepdaddy season. She said that like she was surprised, not at the plans, but at the timing. That's how Brittany Renner sounded. She sounded surprised by the timing of it all. Okay, hold on. It's stepdaddy season already. So what happened to push the time frame up? Did PJ Washington start hearing what others were saying about you and start to question whether or not you would have been with him had you been younger? Did he start saying, wait, what was the real reason that you came for me? What's really going on? Is that what happened? Because see, PJ Washington, even though he was a good high school athlete, and stereotypically, women chase after guys like that. There's another thing that happens too. When guys are developing their game to that level, to his level, it takes a lot of time, a lot of discipline, a lot of practice. You got coach sit up saying, don't you focus on them broads, focus on this. Yeah, but there's still a biological incentive to focus on them broads. So since you have to neglect that, that means you are more susceptible to the ones that are willing to focus on you. And when that happens, guess who's going to do that? It's not the young ones that are going to come and actually come to you with a focus, like trying to break down barriers to get you per se, because you're still disciplined enough to make it to the pros. That's a turnoff. It's the ones who are looking to beat the bell, to beat the buzzer. And I don't mean the one at the end of the game, but their own little buzzer. They're looking to beat that bell, beat that buzzer. They come along and say, wait a minute, you young, you dumb, you deprived. I'm coming after you. So they're sitting up and they're saying, just like you playing on the court and the court has to be even. But if the court was a little bit uphill on your side, downhill on theirs, you'd have an advantage. I get that. So guess what, boo-boo? This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to play the game where I have the advantage. But if you do that by getting your passport and changing, forget zip codes, changing country codes, then you're cheating. It's like playing basketball on the moon. All of a sudden you can slam dunk. Oh, so you cheated then. No, we're on the moon, same as you. The opposition is playing on the same gravity. No, they not. Oh, God. So when you do it, it's wrong. Oh, no, Jawad, they know how to manipulate, bruh. They know how to manipulate even before that. They absolutely do, because they start off with that. I keep saying it's a war, Jawad, because what goes on, man, is that when they are little kids, they're sitting in the kitchen and mama and auntie and big sis and grandmama are discussing men. They squawking like hens, talking about men's, how to get them ends. And little baby girl is sitting up in the kitchen on the floor, on the living room right next door, playing with her dolls. But that's what they saying right in front. They don't exclude the little girls from their conversations. They exclude the little boys from them. And we as grown men don't involve young boys in all of our adult conversations because they're not adults. It makes sense. But the point is that they put them, they start off, they go to their first day of middle school with some knowledge of it. Then they get to go home, discuss it with mom, big sis, what they saw, and get even more in-depth knowledge. Is this what you were talking about, auntie? Yes, baby, that sure was. That's what's going on. Post-wall, yeah, they know how, because they know it before they have to think about the wall, they know. That's all they taught, how to manipulate, not how to negotiate, not how to reciprocate, but how to manipulate. Now, abroad, when you get into these places like, when you get into traditional areas, they're taught about both, I would say. I mean, they're taught about manipulation and reciprocation, I'm sure. But the problem is that in the West, it's about manipulation. And since we're going to naturally demand reciprocation if we're not influenced not to, they're filtering out the men that will teach the younger ones to focus on reciprocation so that they can stay teaching nothing but manipulation. Because reciprocation takes effort. And they know, if they understand that if old dudes who think they pimps are teaching younger guys about manipulation, they know what's going on. They didn't like it. They don't like pickup artists teaching younger men about manipulation. They don't like it. But here's the thing. Much as they don't like it, abandonment is worse. Remember, a few years ago, they loved Steve Harvey, but they could not stand dating coaches and game coaches. Now, what's going on is that the dating coaches and game coaches are shaming BMPTs. They're shaming even non-Black men who leave. And that's largely because they and the women have the same interest, and that is your money, your resources. I mean, I remember there was a guy that was, he kind of coached me on understanding. Now, he wanted to coach me on actually getting women and taking them to my apartment and smashing. And I was about to become Muslim, and I wasn't sure that I wanted to just go that route. The other thing too was I didn't trust these broads. I wanted to understand them, but I didn't trust them. I was like, man, like, if I take one home smash, what about false accusations? Because they act funny already. It's always something. So how do I trust them to be honest? I mean, they already take stuff I say, twist it around. You know, we go to my apartment, we smash. Just because I smash, I'm wearing handcuffs later on. No, not doing that. But I remember, see, we were at work. But he would still give me the understanding of a mindset, what these women mean when they say certain things. And the women knew. And they were like, Black, why are you listening to JC? Because he's answering questions y'all butts won't. You don't need to know nothing he gonna tell you, no way. Yeah, I do. No, that's not true. So you gonna go to the club and Mac this weekend? Not really, no. I just know what the lies are when I hear them. Because there are things y'all want men to know and you're not gonna tell men. So that means somebody else got to say it. Because no man knows how to read minds. Now see, he was functioning as a type of game coach, dating coach. But here's the kicker. At that time, they hated him. It's as if I wasn't supposed to know. I was supposed to just sit there and be a victim. That's what they thought my job was. And that was when one of my colleagues, and I remember her name was Rebecca, ironically, right? A sister named Becky. But that's when one of my colleagues, Rebecca, told me, look, Black, you were never going to be treated equally by Black women, especially attractive Black women. You're never going to be. You're just not Black enough. This is not the 80s. You've been out of style over a decade now. We like them jet black, tall, muscular, bald-headed with big beards. You're beginning to grow a goatee. You're really light-skinned. You're medium built, medium height. You don't fit any stereotype. You sound Black. That's about it. They think you're trying too hard. You would have been better off, actually, pretending like you weren't Black. She had a 45-minute conversation with me about this. You should have been trying to date other races as soon as you got started. Yeah, we'd have had something to say. Of course we do, because we women. But you ain't going to be treated equally. Why would you subject yourself to this? And I was like, so I'm not sister's type. No, dummy. You're cute. Yeah, sisters are like you, looking at you, but being seen out in public with you, you'll never be validated. You'll never get that. Being seen out in public with you, they got to treat you badly. They got to send a message to other women that you're being used. Hell, their friends are looking at you. Man, I'd like them too, but I can't be seen out in public with them. We all know what it is, but ain't nobody going to say it. And I remember asking Becky, is this the reason why it is that now women in relationships and married women are starting to hit on me and stuff and ask their friends about me? She said, that's exactly why. And then she told me they might not even have a boyfriend. Well, why would they say that if they don't? Doesn't that make it more complex? You don't get it. That's a way to say we can't be out in public, but I like you, so we can spend time together at home by ourselves with nobody in our business, because they want to keep you a secret, because they can't show you out in public because you ain't black enough. It's like, oh, okay, got it. Thank you. Now she was, but at the time that she giving me this game, put me up on game, was telling me, why are you listening to JC? Well, I mean, JC was breaking it down for me. I was in my 20s by that time. In 2019, my dad and I went to a Lebanese restaurant around the corner from his house for the few weeks I was in the States that summer. And he broke it down to me and said, Black, I'm going to tell you this. He had not told me this before. That means he was not sure about this. Now, here he was. This was like about 4 years ago this week. And now he is, head full of gray hair, right? A grandfather now to an 18-year-old. So a grandfather at this point to an adult grandson. With a middle-aged son himself, finally telling me, listen, when you do pick your next, understand this. You were never a secret to them. Before they pick you, they have talked about this with their uncles. I mean, with their, he said, he didn't mention any male relatives. He said they have talked about you with their mothers, sisters, aunts, grandmama, cousins, friends. Keep this in mind, son. So if you need advice, feel free to ask the men in your life. Now, my dad did not know that I'd been red-pilled already. But truth be told, he was getting red-pilled. He was learning stuff at that age and passing it on to me before, while he could. So in terms of learning this manipulation, they're manipulative post-wall because they're manipulative pre-wall. Oh, that. I haven't read the book, but I need to. Because with the summaries that I've heard were very eye-opening. So you're dealing with all of this, and you've got to understand that whatever the hell you were witnessing, whatever the hell you were seeing, is by design. And that's why it is that we can't afford to have these men sitting up here talking about it's the accountability on us and what about us? And the one thing we've done is make things too easy. Now, if we accept that accountability, we're going to turn around and stop doing that. Because see, the thing about us as men is that we're already socialized from a young age to take accountability. Like I said, when you were a black man, you're raised to take accountability when you had no control over something. Hell, be a black boy with a younger sibling and just acts a mother cuss word fool and mom goes out to work. Mom comes home, house messed the fuck. What? What? Why is this couch turned over? Where does hole come from in this couch? I didn't do that. Yeah, well, then you let him do it. So you didn't know about it, but because your little sibling did something, you get the butt whooping too. You're held accountable without the control. So we're used to that. And that's part of why it is that we got not only these women, but these simp ass men coming up and talking about how we're accountable and what role we played in this too, looking for reasons to hold us accountable. Looking for that. So that we can more easily be manipulated into taking the blame for the way things are and never looking at them. Hell, as I stated before, the biggest conspiracy to actually affect the lives of most black males in North America was not COINTELPRO. That was the second. The biggest one to affect the lives of most black men in North America was the Western Black Women's Conspiracy. To keep a lot of information away from us. And if it meant keeping daddy away, then that's what it meant. And they had the power to do it. And when Becky and Karen and Amber found out that they could do the same thing because the system's the system, and they started doing it, then you had Massa's grandsons talking about, wait a minute, what the hell? And then the MRA movement started. For us, this was something that a few black men knew, like Iceberg Slim. It's always been that way. The MRA movement started when Massa's grandkids got their N-word wake-up call, as Don Calypso explains it. Shout out to Don Calypso for that. And now, before I close out, and I want to thank you all from the bottom of my black heart and the depths of my black mind for being with me in this one, I'm going to give you all one thing to end with, and this might be the subject of my next live. I'm not sure exactly what day will be the best one, but this should be the subject of the next live. About these simps. It's not just Dante. He's just the one that we all happen to listen to yesterday. And I'm sure the Roger Report's live stream is still up for playback, and you'll hear it. I had to jump off suddenly because I didn't want to interrupt everybody else. It wasn't my live stream. When I had to go because it was late here. But I'm going to tell y'all this about these simps. The simps do need to quit. And we got to draw a line in the sand between us and them and put them on a bad side of that line. That's true. But we still have to tell them that which is going to, we still have to hand them the key to put the chain off their mind. That is very important. Now, the key that's going to take the chain off their mind is when we say to them, it's not your fault either. I'm not going to go too deep into that now because that's another live stream. But we have to make it very plain to them what actually is their fault and what is not their fault. What is not our fault, what is not their fault. What is not the next man's fault, what is not the fault of the man that you and I never met and don't know exists. What is not these men's fault has to be specified to them. They haven't been told. See, one of the things about the simps is that the simps may have heard both sides of the argument, but one side sounds more convincing to them. They have not heard the backup. That's the thing about it. They haven't heard the backup for our side. The exoneration, because see, we black men are not going to be exonerated for something for which we are actually guilty anyway, individually or collectively. We already know that. That's why I'm not really worried. I'm not threatened by exonerations that much. Because I know that the exonerations are they're not for the guilty, especially when the guilty man is black. Or when the accused is black. Hell, you're black, it may not be for you when you're innocent. And you may not know about your own exoneration because you're not trained to growing up as a black man in the West under a gynocracy. Because black male innocence is a contradictory term in the understanding of the West in and of itself. Whether it's in the criminal court system or the court of the public opinion of the hyena bitch. Doesn't matter. Either one, black male innocence does not go together. In their minds, I mean, not mine, because my mind is, that chain's been taken off. The issue here is somebody's got to tell these simps where they are innocent themselves. And part of that is what they don't know has to do with this Western black woman conspiracy to keep us all ignorant of that. It is because of their ignorance of their own innocence regarding something very important to men and women alike, but especially to men, and then exaggerated in importance amongst Western black folks. It is because of their innocence with regards to that they don't know what they don't know. That's what they're facing. And that's why they simps. And that's why they're talking, pointing fingers at men and talking about us and everything's us, failing to really be able to narrow down the one thing that we have been wrong for, making it too easy. I'm not talking about just the ding-a-ling. We have made that too easy, but that's not all I'm talking about. We've made a lot of things too easy. We've made the Johnson too easy, but they don't take us up on that many times. But the other thing too is we've made everything else too easy. So it looks like before I go to that one, I guess I'm going to have to do a recording on this one here. Shout out to Phantom Clutch for this one. Kimchi Karen knows the answer to that question. She gets it. She said the successful men of their own country. She means the well-to-do men. Most human beings in the world are not walking around with a bunch of money. That is number one. So mathematically speaking, it's just not very likely. And women that come from these countries either consciously or subconsciously understand that the chances of getting a whole lot of money at one time and in one place are just very slim. If you can find, but it's not a guarantee. They subconsciously, at least subconsciously, understand that. Western women have this notion that there can be as many elite men as there are women that want them. That's the notion that they have. Well, hell, every woman's going to want an elite man. So then what is an elite man if there are enough to go around? That's where Western women fail. And that's where foreign women succeed, and that's how they succeed. By having more wisdom. See, Western women who may not even believe in God understand that all human beings are denied perfection, men and women alike. You're not allowed to find someone that's that way, and you're not allowed to be that way for someone else. No one's allowed to find it or be that. Now, they get that. Pick your poison. You're going to have your poison, and you're going to find the poison in someone else. They get that. Western women have this mindset that they never need to get rid of their own poisons and that they never need to tolerate anything they don't like in a man. And they keep falling under this delusion. You don't have to tolerate that. That's right. You don't have to tolerate that if you're willing to tolerate something else that's bad in its place. That's it. So looks like I'm gonna have to go in on Kimchi Karen again because I done told her to shuck up. Now she's trying to sneak this men who travel, but she's mainly talking about BMPTs. Make no mistake about it. These white and white adjacent broads are not talking necessarily about white dudes that travel, especially if they're wealthy white dudes that travel because they just like a little something exotic. It's not going to follow them back home and tell everybody, yeah, I screwed him. That's different. They're mostly talking about BMPTs, black male passport travelers. And here's why I say that. We are aware of the women that want black men because not all women that aren't black want black men, but the non-black women that want black men will compete for a black man. So we know about them. They can be a minority amongst themselves, but they will come for us. That's what's different. Okay, thanks for letting me know about this passport bro wingman got on her. Then I'll shuck up. I need to check him out. But I'm going to tell you all this, though. Keep this in mind. There are non-black women that don't like black men, and they don't understand why other women would, because they're very status conscious, class conscious, and we're not associated with status and class. I'm talking as a race, not as specifically nationality, any one nationality. They may associate a black American with it. They might not. But when they're, but what I'm getting at is, like, take for instance, I'll give you an example of one that really is, she does not find black men attractive. She doesn't find black people attractive. Y'all know an example of one non-black, non-white woman that does not find us attractive and can't see why someone else does. Kimchi Karen's one. I'll let y'all think about who the other one is. If you figure it out in the next few seconds, put it in the chat. Who is another? Not black, not white. Thinks she's white, thinks whites are okay, and can't understand why other women would find black men attractive. Go. Goodness gracious. As soon as I say go, he gets it. My man Sharp on the keyboard. Woo! Look at that. Y'all smart today, boy. All right, that's 2. I guess the rest of you said, man, I don't even need to type it. He confirmed it. And that's true. That's the proof of the matter. Yeah. Yeah, it's her. It's her. She's it. She not only we're not her type, and we're not, which is fine. She does not understand the appeal. She doesn't get it. That does abound. And I know, because when there are women like that, then I tend to be their type. Now, the thing is, I'm very happy with my African origin, and I let folks know this, let them understand this. I would say proud, but that would be an understatement. I didn't earn it. It's an honor God just gave me. So it's more like I'm very happy and content. I'm honored, I should say, with my African origin. And I make that known. And some of them are like, oh, I mean, he's okay. My type, he's attractive, but he's a little too proud of what I'm not attracted to. So I know that exists. That's the standpoint they're coming from. Now, they would love to see a world where black men can't get none. That's what they're looking for. That does exist already in the West. The Anglophone Americas in general has that problem. Most brothers in Jamaica ain't digging them guts. The UK, the States we already know about, Canada, most ain't getting up in them guts. It's a few getting up in all these wounds. That's who it is. Just a few. We already know that. Now, as far as these broads go, like Kim Karen and Amira, as far as they go, it's like this. If other women would view you the same way that the sister does, then the world would be devoid of ugly Negroes. That's their mindset. And I'm going to tell you now, even though Kim Karen is probably either a Christian or an atheist, I'm sure she's not Muslim, and Amira claims Islam, and I'm having doubts at this point. Not that she means to be a non-Muslim, but I'm having doubts about her ability to stay Muslim because of her beliefs about race and equality. And Amira is actually the one that's the worst. Even though Kim Karen is not Muslim and Amira claims it, I'm telling y'all, Amira is actually the one that's worse. Absolutely. Because Amira likes to sit up and try to tell black men, most don't want to be with y'all. Now, that tends to be true when it comes to black women. I'm not saying this because I'm a black man. I just want to brag and boast. I'm saying that because non-black men just casually say it in front of me. Like, really? Non-black men are the ones that come with these notions that black women are just not as beautiful as non-black women. Like, how could you think they are? And I'm like, bro, there's so much diversity that we can be the best. Because of the diversity, we get to be the smartest and the dumbest and the prettiest and the ugliest. That's why. So therefore, when I'm looking for the best looking, it is black and black adjacent that tends to win. Because the ones I'm going to avoid also get to be black and black adjacent. It's where the diversity is. In your case, your women also are beautiful and ugly and everything in between, yet and still there's a lot less of a margin in between the two. And it's even worse over here because you've had a lot of these Bedouins who've only married their first cousins for 8 generations in a row and have developed health conditions due to it. Retinal detachment at a young age. You ever seen a small child 6 years old with eyes shine like a cat's? Y'all ever seen that? I have. How the hell does that happen? And one of that kid's relatives told me, oh yeah, our family got problems with the eyes and heart troubles. It runs in our whole tribe. Because people look down on marrying somebody else that's different from them. So black is out of the question for a lot of them. They're like, oh my God, my will become dark. Oh my God. So you know that's unacceptable to them. So that what that does is that does lead to the lack of genetic diversity. Consanguinity is the medical term for it. And they don't come out retarded per se, but they get all kinds of other host of problems. And sometimes you don't know if some of them are retarded or not. I mean, I've never seen a group of people with so many excuses and claiming so many disabilities in life. You know why? There's so many people here that have disabilities that those who don't have them claim them because it's believable. I had a student yesterday tell me I have a learning disability. No, you don't. You just didn't learn English, and now you have to know it to learn the rest, and you mad because I'm not going to slow down and tell you in Arabic. Hell, as far as they know, I can't. So Amira is actually trying to get other people to close doors to us so that one day her little grandbabies can enjoy a world without us darkies. Because Arabs who do think like her, and they tend to be Lebanese or nearby, Gulf Arabs are actually a lot less racist in that regard, generally. Gulf Arabs are like, I don't want to marry them, but I see why they would marry each other. That's how Gulf Arabs tend to be. North Africans vary from nationality to nationality. Egyptians, I think by far Egyptians they take the cake. I think so. I'm not sure about Libyans. I heard about what's going on in Libya, but that has a lot to do with lawlessness. But Egyptians, yeah, they take the cake. I know. An Egyptian told me that in Egypt, an educated Egyptian thinks it's okay to call black folks the N-word. A religious Egyptian told me once, if I'm interested in black women, I should just sleep with them. Why would I marry them? I'm like, let me explain something to you, N-word. And I was already talking to my current wife about marriage at the time, but nobody knew because I didn't want to embarrass her in front of the other black women based on what Rebecca told me. But I told him, let me explain something to you, bro. If there's a woman that should be used, it'd probably be the funky breath women of your race. If anything. There's nothing wrong with black women for being black. That was what I told this dude. And I meant it. I still do. It's not the blackness of black women. It's the problem. That's why I'm sitting here telling you to leave. It's not because of a blackness. It's because of a conspiracy, her gaslighting, her attitude. She learns from Karen, Becky, and Amber the absolute worst, takes it, flips it, doubles it, goes into a 200% because that's what black folks do in general. Good or bad, we go 200% into anything. And once we believe in it, she impresses Karen, Becky, and Amber, who are her teachers. They turn around and take the new model, do it to their men, and then their men start saying, men's rights. And that's what you're looking at. Karen, Becky, and Amber learn from their students, Sapphire, take it back to their men, give their men their own N-word wake-up call, and then their men start a movement. Victimize their own sons and grandsons in the process. And the grandsons and sons come to us and they're like, you guys got it right about women, which is true, but then they still fail to get it right about race. And that's why it is that I don't sit up and say, well, let's unite with the white men. Cooperation in a context-specific context or for specific goals does make sense depending on the goal. Situational cooperation, that does make sense. I get that. But this idea of just outright unifying doesn't make sense because Amira gets it right about gender, but gets it wrong about race. Karen gets it. I don't even know if she gets it right about gender or race. It's only black folks, pretty much black men with a red pill awareness to get it right about gender and about race. The races start off as equal. Those who oppress others become inferior because they're oppressors. That's what it is about race. The genders start off as equal. In the West, the women are trained to behave inferiorly and claim superiority, thereby making themselves worse. That's what it is about gender. They follow it. Nobody gets both of them at the same time except us. So the next one's going to have to be about what it takes to unlock the chain on the minds of these simps. Now, I don't know exactly what day of the week I need to do this. I'll let you guys put your input into the comments as to which day of the week is best for me to go live about it. It would be in the afternoon my time and in the morning yours. But yeah, y'all need to know this. Y'all need to understand that. All of us do, because you and the audience are not simps. We bump into them. And simps, they're going to sit up and you got to do this in writing. You can't tell a simp. Most of the time, you can't tell them because they're going to interrupt you, overtalk you, outtalk you. They're not going to let you finish. They say, well, let me ask you a question. You let them ask, you start answering, they start overtalking you again because they're niggas. They were taught to be, because they were raised by her to be an N-word, a stereotypical one at that, barking and growling. That's who they are. And you know what? A lot of them I hate too, Jawad. But I do believe this. The simps are the enablers. They are the enablers. See, the issue here is this. The simps may not even be allowed to have their own kids. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. But the simps are the ones that are allowed to talk to the next generation of Black boys and Black girls. And in the Muslim community, they're the ones that are allowed to talk to the little Muslim kids in the masjid. They're the ones allowed to speak. So they're allowed to teach this gynocentric BS. I mean, a lot of dudes are going to be considered beta only because everybody ain't going to be an alpha. That's the thing about it. The ones who started the terms alpha and beta, it was two zoologists that started those terms. Or one started the term, the other one, but two of them had the same idea. And both of them had to update their findings when they studied the wolves in the wild, because what they saw was that the alpha couple was actually just the breeding pair. The others in the pack were their pups. That's why the alpha male was the dad, the alpha female was the mother. They were raising their pups. The others, and there were so-called betas and omegas, were their pups, were their offspring. That's what they, both of them had to find this out. But the issue here is that in these communities, the simps, they are the problem. But they're the ones that are allowed to pass this down. Whether it's to their kids or someone else's, usually someone else's. And we got to take the chains off their minds. That's what we got to do. And there's a key that can do that. But the key's got to be done in writing. I can talk about it in speech, but the key's got to be done in writing. Because simps still have the same, they got the same muscle and tend to carry the same weapons as us. Simps actually will kill us. That's one of the things. They can pass this down to the next generation and they can kill us. And the society is going to back them up. And there's another thing about simps too. Keep this in mind. Witchcraft is real. If you all don't believe witchcraft is real, ask Jawad about it. He knows it's real. Base Muslim knows it's real. Charles Irby knows it's real. Jaws 2003 knows it's real. A lot of my audience know that it's real. It does exist. It is not a joke. Now, I'm not saying you can scientifically prove it, but it does happen. I mean, people do it, and there's some kind of results that they get. Otherwise, women would not continue doing this for so long, nor would men. Either gender can practice it. These simps, because of their sympathy, don't require witchcraft to convince them to do certain things. However, they're still susceptible to it. Now, there are defenses against witchcraft. You got to pre-plan the one against simps. If somebody did witchcraft on you now and you knew that that was what was happening, or if you did not know and you just stumbled upon something that actually could serve as a medicine against that, and you said it or did it, then it would start working. You see the effects within days. When it comes to the defense against simps, the defense against simps, you got to pre-plan that. So I'm going to tell us about how to be proactive. But there's an imprisoning idea that allows them to do this. And the key, if you hear the idea, you will think about how you're going to put it in writing. And this is part of why I tell a lot of my subscribers about literacy. When you hear me talking about, look, if you think punctuation is a problem, don't write. If you think you can't be bothered to spell the difference between there, and there, or it's and it's, or between are and hour, or between hour and hour, the unit of time and the possessive. If you think that these things are not important, then you're not going to be able to participate in getting the ideas to the simps, because the simps are not going to let you speak these ideas. They're going to interrupt you. They're going to do it. And if they hear you saying this in a recording, they're going to just turn it off. I don't want to hear this stuff. They ain't got time. But when it's something that you read, people like to finish what they read, especially if it's not a full-length book or even a report paper. If it's about the length of a social media post, they want to finish reading it because they can. Boy, you put that idea in a simp's mind, you're not going to see an overnight change within hours. But if they start to see the same message again and again and again, written in different ways, but none of them are very long, then that's going to put the seed in their head, fertilize the soil, water that seed, and one day something's going to happen in front of them, or they're just going to read it enough times, and then the seed is going to break and the roots are going to take in the soil. And then the stalk is going to come up and break the level of the soil. And it's going to develop a leaf. And that leaf is going to start photosynthesis. Then the roots are going to kick the nutrients into the stalk and into the leaf, and you're going to have growth in the mind of that person. And then eventually the seed is going to be produced from the mind of that person and go into another plant, meaning another mind, more soil, more water. Someone else is going to pick it up. I'm talking about an exponential increase in what we know and an exponential decrease in the numbers of simps, because a former simp, most of us have been former simps, but we were not vocal about it. But a former simp that was vocal and articulate in their ideas is going to be the best one that can reach other former simps that were articulate in their ideas, because they will be able to articulate the mental freedom. They will be able to articulate the key to that mental chain that opens it up. There will still be women that are protected, but it's about time that the women that will be protected are the ones who would defend us from other women. Those are the women you protect. The women that are in your family, you protect them physically and things like that. But even ideologically, instead of just protecting women in general, so they can be thoughts and hoes, and bring you somebody else's kids, and that's right, tell them, preach to the youth, teach the youth. That's right, teach them to respect women's. Instead of that, the women that will be protected will be the ones that are more like Crimson Cure. More similar to Shay Sade. You know, the pick-me's. They would find the defense and the protection. And the ones that would find protection from black men would be the ones who were able to get it right about both gender and race at the same time. Because frankly, we've already seen that when you start leaving the black passport bro sphere, the SYSBM, the IBMO, you start getting into the wider manosphere, they think that conservatism means that men are on top and white is on top. And we're like, what? Why the hell would white be on top? For what? Because you have more stuff? Yeah, I mean, Of course, drug dealers have more stuff if they get successful enough doing it. All it takes is for the cops to not move in and stop them. That's all. Scam artists get more stuff if the cops don't stop them. There were no world police to stop Europeans from going around and taking everybody else's stuff. That's all it was. Nothing else. But the black women that will be defended will be those who get it right about both. We're talking about an exponential shift in our favor. Because right now, let's be honest, we know that the solution is to leave, but not everybody is able to do that. Some are stuck for now. Some are stuck for long. Some are stuck for, well, they're stuck permanently. What happens if you break the chains off, if you're able to break the chains off of some of them, the ones in whose minds the chains can be broken? At the very least, if you're able to take out the intellectual soil from underneath their feet, then what happens? They're upside down, they fall, but when they stand, they got to stand on something that's actually solid again. What happens then? See, right now, when you're sitting up here and you're preaching this, you get stopped. We let simps on, we let simps talk. That's the mistake, because they'll overtalk you every time. The simps, they didn't learn this from men. And actually, I take that back. They did learn this from elder men, but they didn't learn this from manhood. When you're trying to reach the youth, they come along and they're telling the youth, listen, don't listen to those misogynistic, chauvinist pigs. We need to respect women. Your mama's a woman. Okay, hold up. Slow your roll. Was mama good? Did mama raise you in such a way that you could fairly easily make her a grandma and stay married to her daughter-in-law? Did she give you that? No. Okay. And she was a good mom in every other way but that. Now, did she raise you in such a way that she made that difficult for you to do? Oh, she made it difficult. Now, if it was difficult, period, because it is for a lot of guys, then mama didn't mess that up. But if she messed around here and raised you in such a way that it's difficult, then she screwed that up. That's a bad mom. If you don't believe me, check with Stephen Clinkscales. Steph is cold. He said his mom and his aunt did not tell him the truth, because if they did, they would have told him how his dad became his dad in the first mother cuss word place. They didn't. They didn't say nothing because they didn't want him to know. My mother told me that a lot of women don't want their sons to know what the deal is. That tells you something right there. So with that being said, I'm going to tell you all this. I haven't seen any feedback in the chat about when is a good day next week for the live stream, any suggestions or anything. But be ready to take what I'll tell you in the next one and put it into words, like the length of a social media post, because that's going to be an effective way to undermine the simp ideology in the minds of the simps that might read. I'm going to tell you all what the most, and in that live stream, remind me to tell you all what was the most liberating thing I ever heard. Because even though I wasn't a simp, I was trying to be in the middle because I thought that was the fair place to be. I just figured because men and women are human, we're both going to be to blame. That's what I thought. It's the most logical conclusion to jump to in the absence of other information. When I do go, somebody please remind me and explain what was the most liberating thing that I learned from the manosphere. And I mean the black manosphere. Which should make it easier to tell these simps what they need to hear to break these chains off their minds too. Thank you all for listening from the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind. And I want to again thank the Cash App donors, because now as a new small business owner,
who still has to take care of responsibilities, you all have really helped out. And that's where this is going to go. This is going to go towards a business, either towards equipment for the channel. Well, really both. It's going to be split between whatever's going to help the channel and what's going to help the business to take off. So that from there, I can use that to fund adjustments for other BMPTs that are going to want to travel. And when the business begins to turn a profit, I won't get the name of the business, but then I'll be able to state in which country it's located. Or maybe not then, but at least in which country I will be, so that I can help people make that adjustment when they decide, when more SYSBM and especially them, SYSBM and SYSMB, I'm sorry, that's Save Yourself Muslim Brother. And that's something that Base Muslim started. Shout out to him. Especially when they decide to go to this nation where I'll be located. The business is nearby so that it would work, so that it wouldn't be too hard to travel to and to supervise. So I want to give shouts out again to the 18th letter, Red Falls Black, Onzen, Mr. Hunter, Expansion LLC, Jaws, The Lion, Gale, and Passport OG. And then Brother Campbell. I want to give shouts out to them for coming through and making it worth it for me to do this. Actually, more than worth it. That does help to a point where I don't have to chase down private customers, which would jeopardize my ability to work here in the kingdom in the future. And I'll do everything I can to make this worth your while and worth your coin. Thank you so much for listening, for flying Jet Black Airways, where Jet Black is also a bird. Keep jetting black with me till the wings and the wheels fall off. As always, black heart, black mind, black out.